Alright, hello everybody, and in today's video we are going to be talking about Tropical Cyclone 9, now approaching the Windward Islands out in the west central Atlantic Ocean. You can see it on this long wave map by those deeper oranges and reds that shows some deeper convection moving into the Windward Islands. System as a whole is moving west-northwest, so in this video we are going to be taking a look at the latest National Hurricane Center forecasts at the time this video, of course, was filmed, along with track, strength, everything you want to know on multiple models. So if you are interested in seeing more of these videos, be sure to subscribe to the channel. We'll have plenty more on everything from the tropics to the upcoming winter and everything in between. So without further ado, let's get started. As I mentioned, we do have Tropical Cyclone 9 out there right over the Windward Islands really right now. You can see generally it's moving west-northwest, and it's actually a little bit further south than many predicted, including most models predicted it would be right now. So that is actually a good thing, especially for those, say, in Florida or just the east coast of the United States, as if this tropical cyclone does track over the high mountains of Hispaniola, that is likely going to do a solid job at weakening or just at least keeping the storm at bay, and likely keep it a tropical storm. So anyways, let's look at the latest Tropical Cyclone 9 model track guidance. So this just pretty much shows most of the hurricane models. You can see nearly all of them now have this system tracking almost directly over Hispaniola, which does make sense when you look at the overall trajectory of this system. We expect to kind of go over the northern half of Hispaniola, but nonetheless, that's still some high terrain out there that could definitely weaken the system a little bit. So as you can see, most of the guidance takes it over Hispaniola, misses Cuba to the north, and then takes the system right into South Florida. Originally, a few days ago, it was actually looking like it was going to take a more northern track, miss all of these islands, and then potentially impact maybe the Outer Banks. But now, as you can see, really the consensus is now moving the storm more so into Florida. We do have a few outliers, but you can really tell these are likely inaccurate from the very beginning, especially this red one, as this storm is just not going to take that far north of a track. Now let's look at potential strength for the system. Everywhere in this green area, that is tropical storm winds, tropical storm strength winds. So really, most models keep it at about a 50 to 60 mile an hour tropical storm, which is really nothing to be concerned about. I mean, sure, there's going to be typical preparations you'd make for a tropical storm, but that's just that's just to be expected from many of these areas along the Gulf Coast. Very few models at this point have this storm hitting Category 1 strength. Now, I'm not saying it won't, but especially if the system does track over Hispaniola, the odds of it re-strengthening that fast over the open waters just between Hispaniola and South Florida are very low. And you may wonder why. Sea surface temperature anomalies reflect well above average temperatures. So why isn't this storm going to strengthen that fast after it gets over the open waters? This is why. So let's take a look at the GFS. Let's look at wind shear. Overall, the more wind shear around the system, the more, just the harder time it's going to have, strengthening, basically. So you can see this is where we are right now. It has dead on, 1005 millibars. So that's exactly what it is right now. So let's move this out. You can see we have quite a bit of wind shear, especially on the northern side of the system right now. This is the GFS, but this is just the general idea of what we're going to be looking at. The GFS keeps it insanely weak, almost to the point of just barely anything, just a tropical depression really at most, which is definitely on the weaker end of guidance. But the Euro also kind of has a similar scenario at this point. So it does go over Hispaniola, and as you would expect, it stays very, very weak. But that shear out ahead of the system just follows it, and that's why we're looking at very little potential for this storm to really reach hurricane strength after it passes over Hispaniola and goes into the waters north of Cuba. Another thing is we can look at the dry air filtering into the system. You can see right now there's quite a bit of dry air out ahead of the system, which is why we're not going to be seeing much rapid intensification. Right now it's at about 40-mile-an-hour winds. By the time it gets to Hispaniola, we're probably going to be looking at about 50-mile-an-hour winds, and then it'll probably weaken a little bit over Hispaniola. You can see that dry air once again just stays out ahead of the system, and it's especially, you can see on that southwestern quadrant, getting kind of sucked into the circulation, and that's definitely not what you'd want to see. Well, it is what you want to see, but if you for some reason wanted a stronger tropical storm or even hurricane, that's not what you'd want to see. As that dry air kind of gets into the circulation, it's really going to help to keep the system weak, especially so just a combination of it going over Hispaniola, extremely high terrain, and also the high wind shear and very dry conditions out ahead of the system, and especially just to the south and southwest of it. These are all things why this system will stay pretty weak as it nears Florida. The GFS really doesn't even have it being much of anything. Now, that would pretty much be the outlier when you look at the typical hurricane models, but even these, 50, 60 mile an hour tropical storm, it's nothing major. It's nothing that's going to do so much damage. It's a pretty fast moving storm anyways. We're not going to have that much storm surge, and even so, the east coast of Florida is a lot less vulnerable to storm surge than places like, say, the OBX or, the Gulf Coast in Louisiana and Mississippi, just because of how the ocean ridges are set up. And so we're not looking at much storm surge due to the fast nature of this is, storm speed. We're also not going to be looking at too much rain. I can see, there's going to be definitely pockets of 6 to 8 inches of rain, probably 4 to 8 inches of rain with localized pockets of 6 to 8 inches of rain. Maybe, 6 to 10 inches of rain, but that's just what you'd expect with the tropical storm. It's nothing that these areas aren't used to. But anyways, now let's look at the European ensemble and the GFS ensemble. Then we'll finally get to what the National Hurricane Center's official forecast is as of the latest update. So looking at the Euro EPS, this is pretty much, as you can see, quite a bit of members, and it generally has this idea of the storm going directly over Hispaniola. If we expand this, you can see you can barely even see Hispaniola because all the members take it over Hispaniola, and that widely agreed upon. So it looks like that's what's going to happen. Keep it north of Cuba. Also, for the most part, we do have some outliers to take it over Cuba. I highly doubt that's going to happen. And then they take it into southern Florida, especially. Some have it a little bit stronger on the east coast of Florida, some a little bit weaker on the west coast of Florida. Once again, though, if you follow where these little lines tracked that take it on the east side of Florida, you can see that they miss Hispaniola to the north. They just kind of just brush it to the north, and that's not really what we're expecting to see. So I'd expect to track especially right into the southern tip of Florida, most likely. And then let's just go back to the GFS. Now the GFS, these are the ensembles as of 18Z, I believe. I think so. Yeah, 18Z. So you can see, it has quite a few members, once again, that take it to the north of Hispaniola, but it does have quite a few members that take it to the south. And once again, this track directly over Hispaniola looks much more likely at this point than this track that takes it well to the north. So you can kind of, okay, maybe not ignore, but I would just not bet on these tracks that miss Hispaniola and then keep it much stronger. So I'd especially follow these tight green lines right here, and they generally take it just on the east coast of Florida. So these tracks are a little bit further east than the European. They're a little bit stronger, as you can see by these max winds. Still, though, we're going to be looking at, even on these, probably a mid to high-grade tropical storm. So nothing too crazy. We're not looking at a major system. And just to wrap it up, we have the National Hurricane Center's forecast. You can see this tropical storm, which currently has max winds at about 40 miles an hour, is going to be heading into Hispaniola about 50 miles an hour. They actually have it maintaining strength by the time it leaves that area, but I think it could easily go back down to 45 miles an hour. Then it will track just to the north of Cuba, and then following that, likely into the southern tip of Florida. They have it at about a 65 mile an hour tropical storm. So either way, we're probably looking at about a 55 to 65 mile an hour tropical storm at landfall, likely in South Florida. So nothing major. But we will keep you updated. There is a chance that maybe it just goes to the north of Hispaniola and then tracks a little bit more east of where it's expected to right now, and then becomes a threat to the Carolinas. But right now, that's just not what we expect. Anyways, everybody, thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe and stay tuned for more videos.